In a previous video, entitled The Sylux Question, I discussed Sylux's equipment theoretically being a result of the Galactic Federation creating A, an alternative to hiring bounty hunters such as Samus Aran, or worse, B, a means of insurance in the event that their most powerful asset, Samus herself, ever went rogue. After some thought, however, I have found what I believe is a far more viable and less sinister explanation. For starters, while it is unclear how Samus's scan visor is able to identify a vast slew of entities and objects, what is clear is that the visor's database includes information on the suit, ship, and weapon in Sylux's possession, meaning if the Federation intended on using the equipment against Samus at some point, then surely they would have withheld such information from her or sought measures to do so. In that regard, the only logical explanation is the Federation's sheer ignorance of the full extent of the visor's capability. Further, while this may seem a trivial and even obvious detail, it is important to note that Sylux's suit and ship are prototype technology, which would suggest that the Federation intended to create more of such suits and ships for presumably an elite corps of soldiers. The main reason this is relevant will become clearer later on. With all that out of the way, let's move on. Sylux's suit design and features, as aforementioned in my previous video, are undeniably similar to Samus's own, suggesting the Federation implemented Chozo technology in its development. However, it is the suit's most pronounced feature that I want to draw attention to, which is, of course, the protruding shoulder pieces. This design is only found in two other instances, namely the Hunters, Echoes, and Corruption space pirate designs, and the Kriken's. As far as the space pirates are concerned, given the timing of this rendition of their armor, and given the space pirates' tendency to replicate, or at least attempt to, alternate technology such as Samus's own, as is found in the Beam Troopers, and even Weevil's armor, it is likely that the armor design was inspired by the Kriken exoskeleton. This is further corroborated by the similarity between the Kriken forearm and the pirate quantum assault cannon. As far as the Galactic Federation is concerned, Sylux's gear seems to be not only likewise based on Kriken biotechnology, but also seems specifically designed to counter a Kriken in combat. Regarding the similarities and correlations, the shoulder pieces, as aforementioned, are not unlike the Kriken exoskeleton, nor is the casing of the shock coil itself unlike the Kriken forearm. Further, while the active weapon displays on all the other Hunters' HUDs follow the same pattern, not only are the displays as seen on both Sylux's and Trace's HUDs different, but they are also strangely identical to each other, with both HUDs also having similar reticles. Lastly, the weapon of all the bounty hunters and prime hunters are treated as having some polarity with one another. Namely, the Judicator is to the Magmaw, as the Volt Driver is to the Battlehammer, as the Shock Coil is to the Imperialist being Trace's weapon. So the two are correlated, but aside from the Shock Coil being the most effective against Imperialist-based foes, what makes Sylux's equipment anti-Kriken per se? Well, the Krikens possess the ability to cloak, which means the shock coil, a weapon that is practically heat-seeking as it lassos onto any entity within a certain distance, is the most effective weapon against unseen foes. It is perhaps because of this very attribute that the Federation previously banned the technology, as the weapon has no apparent safeguard against friendly fire, only to re-implement it against the Krikens as a desperate measure. As an interesting side note, the shock coil also resembles an electric current, as its name suggests, electric zaps being a common way of exterminating pests, such as insects. Sylux's visor design is also strangely limited, as it appears to provide no peripheral vision whatsoever. It may very well be that this design comes with reduced glare that improves direct line of sight, similar to the visors of Imperial Scout Troopers. This may be the case so that the Kriken hunter in question can detect cloaked Krikens, since the cloak isn't perfect and still leaves a barely visible shade. Ironically, however, in the case of the Scout Troopers, the visor is optimal for sniping, something the Kriken specialize at rather than Sylux himself. This may suggest that the wearer of the armor was intended to eventually employ sniper tactics against the Krikens, as sometimes a sniper against a sniper is the best strategy. Perhaps the Federation even intended to capture and utilize Kriken sniping technology at some point. Further, since the Imperialist is only truly effective at a distance, Krikens attacked by a powerful short-range weapon such as the shock coil would be forced to change tactics such as morphing into the Triskelion. There's just one problem. The Triskelion can only attack via melee blows. This is where Sylux's alt form, the Lockjaw, comes in handy as it appears geared to specifically counter the Triskelion. For one, the Lockjaw is considerably faster than the Triskelion, making it difficult for a Kriken to inflict damage with the lunge attack. For another, in the event a Kriken manages to corner the Lockjaw, the latter is equipped with another countermeasure in the form of dropping bombs linked by electrical tripwire, which can be used to trap the oncoming Kriken and even kill it by swift maneuvering and surrounding it with a third bomb. As for the 007, Sylux's ship, since nothing is known thus far about Kriken vessel technology, whether or not the ship was designed to counter Kriken ships cannot be verified at this time. That being said, similar to Samus's own ship, Sylux can remotely control the 007, which can then aid him in combat with the use of an autocannon. Since the ship is able to detect and target its pilot's enemies, therefore, it is possible that the vessel can also detect cloaked enemies, naturally making it an ideal asset when battling Krikens. If this is indeed the case, then it is a pity Sylux stole the ship as early as he did, as it still had an unresolved design flaw involving direct hits to the hull momentarily disabling the autocannon, a direct hit from the Imperialist, for instance. In conclusion, it is highly probable that the suit and weapons technology that Sylux stole from the Galactic Federation were the products of the Federation attempting to counter the rising threat of the Kriken Empire, which may have initially reared its head in the wake of the Space Pirates' defeats on Zebes and Talon IV in the first place. It may be that the reason Sylux bears such hatred towards the Federation is in fact related to the Krikens themselves, and Sylux's revenge, therefore, is in the form of ironically using their prototypes against them instead. Further, since both the Krikens and Sylux make their debut in the same game, Metroid Prime Hunters, and given the negligible chance of Sylux's absence in the upcoming Prime 4, it may very well be that the Krikens will also play some significant role therein. In fact, with the Space Pirates' two recent crippling defeats in Corruption and Federation Force, it would be the ideal time for the Krikens to strike.